Bring out the dogs. Is there any good resource on the unit types? What do you mean resource? You mean, like, is there any information on all the unit types? I don't think there's a comprehensive list of it unless you're on the forums. Someone probably compiled that. And I'm not sure if I can let, if I can give you access to the forum information. Yeah, no, not really. But, so you haven't played this game at all, you don't understand it, you're new to Total War Arena in general. Because if you are, then I can give you a rundown of most of the units, what they do, all that stuff. If you'd like, I'm perfectly fine with pausing. Because I want to play Germanicus anyways. Okay, so in Total War Arena, it is, it is probably it's an arena. It's a multiplayer. It's a MOBA. You have hotkeys for abilities. As you can see, each commander has unique abilities. And that's what makes most of these units the most unique. The units themselves are pretty nice, but what makes and breaks them is the leader that you use. So we'll run down through the commanders first, and then we'll go through the units. So with Germanicus, he is your frontline, pretty straightforward. Kind of a tank role with his Testudo. He's really good at closing in on enemy positions without taking too many casualties. So his abilities are Heavy Infantry Charge. It's a very short range charge. Well, here we go. Read the tooltip right there. Short, heavy, powerful charge. Doesn't last very long. As you can see here, I think the base is plus 40% acceleration, plus 40% charge bonus. And then the speed is down to plus 20% speed on the initial ability. Testudo, it gives you missile block, and missile block plus 40 is plus 40%. So plus 40% chance to block a missile. Before they used to have plus 30%, or for Leonidas, he used to have, instead of base missile block chance, he would have his base missile block chance increased by a percentage. So while Germanicus would have like 100% missile block chance, Germanicus or Leonidas would have like 40% and then like 20%. I sure of that, but they changed that, so it's better now. Sorry for confusing you. But the thing that really makes Germanicus is his ultimate ability. His ultimate ability is Vengeance. And Vengeance is an attack, damage, and attack chance steroid. It lasts indefinitely, so while you're in melee with an opponent, as long as your units are attacking something, it will last indefinitely. And I've had it during the beta, the open beta. I've had it be where you can chain, melee targets for the entire duration. You can even have it for like 300 seconds if you're in melee, and you still have Vengeance. You can have Vengeance on, and then save it for the next time you get into melee. But yeah, main way to counter him, kite him. Roman infantry units are generally very slow, heavily armored, and they're really easy to. It's really easy to take advantage of that. But in melee, they are monsters. Rome is definitely the melee monster. Aggressive and defensive, they can do both pretty well. And so the biggest drawback with Vengeance is that sometimes if you pop it too early and the enemy realizes, oh shit, he popped Vengeance, because you can see it over the top, they'll say Vengeance as an ability notifier. And then if they're smart, what you want to do is get away from him immediately, because plus 50% melee attack and plus 50% melee damage is an insane buff, just base damage. And then if you get into tier 6, you have another 20% melee attack. Melee attack, if you don't know, well, you probably don't, but for anybody who doesn't know, melee attack is the chance that you hit the enemy target, which is lessened by the enemy target's melee defense, which is the chance for them to dodge. And then we can go off to Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar is pretty fun. He's one of the most fun for me because of his Vici. I think they changed it around a bit. Ugh. Yeah, I got 12 kills there because there was no way I was fighting that. I got greedy. I tried to engage the pikes before the friendly units got behind him, but I got there just too late. So he has Veni, and Veni is an AoE buff to all allies around you. So Vengeance, if you see, only targets self. So this is something you need to make sure you look. So target self, and look at some of the things that you can and can't do during certain situations. So this targets itself. That means only Germanicus' units will be affected by it. But Julius Caesar, his first ability is Veni. And Veni, like I said, gives melee attack and melee defense buff. It's really, really helpful. Like once you hit Armored Legionaries, where they have really high melee defense, and they have pretty good melee attack as well, once you hit tier 6, Julius Caesar becomes like a god with this ability. Not only for his own troops, but it also affects all allied troops around you. There's another ability that does that for Boudica in the Barbarian tree, but we'll get to that later. So that's Julius Caesar's Veni ability, an AoE attack and melee defense buff. And there's Vidi. So Vidi is your artillery and sort of spotting helper thing. So this used to be AoE, but it was a little bit too powerful because you could just have it constantly running with the recharge times. But now you can. Now it's basically the same, but you just can't have it constantly running on a single unit. And this just for the artillery, when you're using it, there's a blue circle. It's a blue dotted circle, and that's basically the area of like where you'll probably hit. And yeah, so that makes this basically just helps all that. It helps your reload speed when you upgrade it. Yeah. So tier 9 you can upgrade the reload speed, but the rest of it is range, how fast they turn the equipment, the dispersion of the missiles, and you can get it to boost your speed pretty quickly as well. It's pretty nice. And then his last ability is Vici, which used to be named Divide and Conquer, but if you didn't realize, Julius Caesar, Veni Vidi Vici. That's his catchphrase, his mantra. But it used to be Divide and Conquer, so it used to be Veni Vidi Divide and Conquer. But they switched it over to Vici because it sounds better. Now, Vici is also an extremely powerful ability. Like I said, once he hits tier 5 and tier 6, and you're fighting higher level players, Julius Caesar becomes a monster because of his AoE buff, and this is also an AoE. So this basically makes it so that anybody within the range, so this is like 20 units of whatever they mark, within 20 units, their range or their abilities are negated. So the so a lot of these abilities, like the ultimate abilities, hold the line, and or not even just ultimate. So these regular abilities, it'll cancel them, and it'll also prevent them from being able to call them again. Now, one interesting interaction is that when Julius Caesar uses Vici and cancels, if someone, so say if I was Leonidas and I put my units into a Hoplite Phalanx, but the enemy Julius Caesar sees this, so he engages in the front, and he has one unit calling Vici. The thing is, what happens is that he is unable to use any abilities. That also means that he is forced to stay in Phalanx, and is much easier to be flanked that way. So that's a pretty cool interaction, because any ability is negated. And then we're going to go off to Scipio. So Scipio is your more mobile, flank-oriented guy. So he's a guy who generally will want to fight along the flanks. He's more so your cavalry guy. Cavalry is very good with Scipio. He can do infantry pretty well also, but that's definitely not his strong point. So we'll go off on his abilities. So his first Warcry ability, his first ability is Warcry. And for 15 seconds, you reduce the melee defense and morale of everybody within the range. Also, thank you for this follow. I really appreciate that. You reduce the defense and the morale of everybody in range. So 15 morale hit is really, like, so say if you have cavalry and you get a rear charge on them, what you do is you rear charge and then you war cry, and you'll almost instantly rout anybody in the game, except for maybe Leonidas if he's using hold the line. But if you get a good rear charge off, and your charge ability is Wrath of Mars, but we'll get to that next. You get a good rear charge off, you will rout like an entire player's army if you can do it properly. And it's fairly easy to do, because a lot of people, well, if you're engaged with somebody and you try to run out of that engagement, they're going to get that rear flank attack thing. So a lot of the time, it's just better to just charge through and get hit in the, as the infantry guy getting flanked, it would be better for you just to kind of absorb the charge. There's not much you can do. That's just the mechanic of the game. Also, thank you. I appreciate the support again. Unless, let me see. Okay, so that's Hedgehog. Alright, cool. Your name didn't update, so I think it's just Twitch alerts being silly. It'll name be up there in a second. Alright, so we're done with that. Really good ability. What's really nice is the morale thing. The morale thing is, like, awesome. And here's another thing. Oh, wow. So they used to have, at, like, tier 4, I think, it would reduce the charge deflect, but I guess they realized how insanely overpowered that is. So minus 5% charge deflect. And you have to get all through that, yeah. So that's good. Alright, so let's go to his charge. His charge ability is Wrath of Mars. It's a 5-second duration, and if you can see over here, we'll go to his. It's a 3-second duration. So his charge is one of the longest charges in the game. And it's really nice because you can charge at long range and still be able to hit enemy units. And it means like you can start up a charge at a safer distance, but it also you'll telegraph that you're charging much earlier on. So it's a double-sided blade, but really what you want to do is try and charge at sort of, kind of think of how long it would take to get you 5 seconds forward in a charge, and try and get at the maximum range you can. Because the longer the charge goes, the more the bonus happens. Because you see here the acceleration, you still have to get to a certain speed in order to get the charge bonus. So say if you charge point blank, you'll get a tiny little bit of damage off, but you won't do the full damage. Anyways, Wrath of Mars is a very long charge compared to the other charges in the game, and is relatively damaging. Not as damaging as Germanicus's charge. As you can see, I have plus 60% charge bonus. At the base is plus 40%. If you were to charge against a player who had cavalry, this is pretty much the only way you can counter a cavalry charge. Sitting still and trying to deflect it just doesn't work in a Total War arena, even though that's how most people from other Total War franchises are used to doing it. What you really want to do is try and get a counter charge off. So he's pretty good for... This is perfect for cavalry because you can cover a lot of distance in 5 seconds. And you can upgrade it for different things, but for the most part, it's pretty standard. There's no extra abilities like charge deflect as in Warcry. But his bread and butter. The main thing that makes him so very powerful, well, mainly it's Warcry, but the the runner-up that's also really strong is this ability. So Oath of Perseverance gives your units, so this is base, plus 80% melee defense, plus 10% charge deflect, and plus 60 morale. So 60 morale was awesome. It used to be that your units were unbreakable, but that was a little bit too powerful. So now it's just a raw increase in morale. And then also reduce your speed by 60%. So this is basically your guy, like, basically your guys are just, they're done for. You can't fight, or, you know, you're outnumbered. With the cavalry in this game have a very high amount of melee defense by nature. And I think it's because of just how little models there are. If they didn't have so much melee defense, they would melt very quickly. And they do die pretty quickly anyways, if they stay in combat for too long. But this makes it so that your units, specifically cavalry, a lot of them have like 80-something melee defense. So that's really high melee defense. And you get like plus 80% of that. You get up to like 160 melee defense with some units. Which means that most units are going to have a really hard time hitting yours. Lets you stay in the fight for a long time and hopefully get reinforcements until the battle's over. Or maybe you just might outlast them, who knows. So very strong ability for Scipio Africanus. Let's see. We'll go through the armies real quick. Like I said, the Romans are really good at walking forward, being aggressive, and taking out enemy defensive positions. Specifically with their artillery. Artillery is really great at taking out phalanx units. The skirmishers are really good as well. Very high damaging unit. I feel like people would be using triple skirms more often, but with the War Dog update, since there are War Dogs, the skirmishers have to get really close in order to attack those War Dogs. And by the time they get one volley off, those War Dogs have already gotten in and they're tearing those guys apart. So I think the main issue with them right now is that they're not really in a good spot with the War Dogs. War Dogs just counter them too hard. But they have really high armor-piercing damage. So they're short range. They absolutely tear apart any infantry units that they get into range with. And they also have a shield, so that allows you to sort of... we'll go to like the tier... Yeah, I think tier 3 would be good. So they have like 29% chance to block. Yeah, like, yeah. So you're like a 30, that's 33. You have a 33% chance to block enemy missiles. Makes them a little bit more tanky, survive a little bit longer. Won't really matter too much in the end if they counter you around. But let's go for like the Hastatis. The Hastati have pretty good armor. Their armor is 104, but most of the armor that that the infantry for the Romans get is from their giant ass shields. These shields are like their lifeblood. Foxman are a unit that can get around those shields. We'll get onto that later. And the rest of their units, so the Roman cavalry are different from the Greek cavalry. Greek cavalry is more so shock cavalry. Roman cavalry is, you want to use them as shock as well, but they can stay in melee combat for a much longer time than Greek units, or Greek cavalry units. They're more heavily armored, they have higher health, they have more melee attack, and I think they have a little bit more melee defense as well. I could be wrong, but we'll go with that. And yeah, so most of the, when you go here, this is where it splits off into two trees. So the Principies at tier 5 are the last, single tree unit that you're forced to get. And when you go down one of these two lines, one thing that they don't teach you is the indicators for, well, they don't have indicators for light and medium infantry or heavy infantry. As you see here, they're all exactly the same, which needs to happen. They need to show you that there's light, medium, and infantry. Because otherwise, people wouldn't know that this line is for heavy infantry. So all these units here are heavy infantry units. But this line is for medium infantry. All the units up here are medium infantry units. Medium infantry and heavy infantry are very important to understand. Because medium infantry overall, they won't get any significant buffs or debuffs for either going on roads or being in the forest. They'll just go slower or faster. But if you're playing light infantry have higher melee defense and melee attack, as well as higher melee or higher charge impact. There's a whole lot of good stuff in there. And then for armored legionaries, they have a similar amount of, I think, not armored, but heavy infantry have a similar buff to fighting on roads. And so on roads, what they do is they have more melee defense and melee attack. And I think their charge impact goes up as well. But I think it's 115% as opposed to 125% or 130% for light infantry and force. And if heavy infantry are in the forest, they have significantly reduced melee defense. And I think tack as well. But the melee defense is the main thing that gets the hard hit. For the rest of it, you got the catapults. Catapults are your straightforward, just regular siege artillery. They throw big rocks. They throw big smoking rocks sometimes. They throw big burning rocks. These are your different types of ammunition. These are consumables as well, so each unit has different consumables. Roman infantries are the only ones who are able to build in-field defenses. So you can build infantry barricades, you can build infantry stakes. Stakes will cause anybody coming in from the front to take damage unless you right-click it, and if you attack it in melee or at range, you can destroy the stakes. It's really difficult to destroy the infantry barricades though, but yeah. So these take a time. You see deployment time 19 seconds, deployment time 15 seconds. If you go over here, let's see, the engineers, they have reduced deployment time. So you see that? It was 19 seconds at the at a similar. Yeah, so 19 seconds for the Principies. The Architecti have 9-second deployment times. And then the same thing with, so 13 seconds as opposed to 19 seconds. And then they have caltrops as well. Caltrops are really great. So what happens is, see if you have an enemy cavalry charge coming in on you. You can throw these caltrops out, and they'll go all over the place. It takes no deployment time. They don't do a whole lot of damage, but what happens is they'll stop any charge. So say if you have your guys like, oh no, there's going to be a cavalry charge or war dog charge. There's going to be a war dog charge. You throw caltrops down, and it stops those charges immediately. Super good, but only the Architecti get it. The regular guys here don't get it. Only the hand ballistas. But yeah, so and then you get ballistas at like the higher levels up. Ballistas are pretty great. They're good at hitting very long ranges, and before, when I used them, they're really good at taking out other artillery. So they're very accurate, which means if you could spot where the enemy artillery is, you could hit their artillery with your artillery and then break it for a time. But now, here are the hand ballistas. Hand ballistas are just like, they're just little turrets that you build on the field. They're faster to build than regular artillery. Let's see, how long does it take? Deploy undeployed engines. I don't know how long it takes though. It doesn't really say. Yeah, so they're basically just bolt throwers. They're really great. And that's the Roman infantry and, well, Roman army. Look over here. We're gonna go to good old Arminius. Go to his abilities first. Arminius. Well, I guess Boudica first. Okay, so Boudica is I don't really know where to say she is. She's really an oddball out. I actually have viewers, yeah. And I've been talking for like 20 minutes and people are still watching. Boudica is really an oddball, because everything she does, someone else does far better. Except for maybe ambush. She just, personally, I don't really like her as a commander. The only reason why I'd ever take her is if I wanted to play with other people. And the only reason why I would do that is because I would take Rebellion, but we'll talk about that in interaction later. So her first ability is Fury. It's a short Well, it's a relatively short charge. I guess medium length is between 3 and 5, which 3 is the shortest, and I think 6 is the longest with Grease. Which one was that? No. I guess they took that ability out. So I guess the longest might be 5, but also with increased duration. From the chart here, you can probably look for it. Yeah, so active time. We'll go back and look through here. So our first ability is a pretty short range charge. Not incredibly damaging, but it can hold its own against most. You're not going to get absolutely wrecked if you countercharge someone. You get really fast. There's not a whole lot of acceleration, so you have to start this charge kind of far away in order to get the good amount of damage from it. But the nice thing about it is that she gives base missile block. So when she's charging, while it's active, you have a 31% chance increase onto your already base chance of whatever to block. So some units you can have like the Foxman. So the Foxmen don't have any shields. So naturally, they have no. Oh, they have 16 missile block. How do they have missile block? Are they? God, they must be like fucking ninjas, just cutting arrows out of the air with the Fox. I didn't realize they actually have missile block. Well, I guess they have a really low missile block chance. Somehow. Now, we'll go back with Fury. So Fury is relatively short range. Not exactly damaging, but it does the job. It's mainly for you to try and close in on enemy positions while you're getting peppered by archer fire. It's a nice idea. It doesn't really work that well in-game. Hopefully they'll do something with it. Now you go over to Ambush. So Ambush is her second ability. Thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate it for the support. Ambush is her second ability. And her Ambush ability is a toggle, which means when you activate it, you have to wait for a certain while for it to go off, and then after it goes off, it'll be active until the cooldown. So until you toggle it off again. So if you toggle it on, you have to wait 15 seconds in order to toggle it off again. So it gives you an increase to the visibility range. It gives you an increase to your archer range, you know, your regular missile range, but it reduces your speed. For my YouTube channel, I have one. I just don't ever do anything on it because YouTube's kind of fucked right now. But yeah, so it's all right. It's an all right ability. I never use it. It's not useful for me because a lot of times what I'm doing is fighting inside the forest, and if you're in the forest, your visibility is reduced anyway, and by the time you see the enemy is probably by the time they see you as well. So it's kind of useless in my opinion. Now you also have Rebellion. Rebellion is her ultimate ability. It has a 140-second cooldown, 30-second duration, and its wind-up is 10 seconds. So wind-up means it takes 10 seconds in order for the ability to take effect. So it'll be 10 seconds and then 30 seconds of active effect. So what this is basically Julius Caesar's Veni ability, the attack and defense steroid, but hers instead gives you melee defense and damage, right? Yeah, so increase melee defense and increase melee damage. Not so great of an ability, in my opinion. I mean, it's alright, but I don't know. I've yet to really find its place. And the thing is, what I feel she's going to be really good with is if you're playing in a party. Because this is just, like I said, it's just like Veni, where it affects all friendly units around you, and any friendly units who come into the range of the ability. So that means that, say if you have Julius Caesar using his Veni ability, and then you also use Rebellion on top of that, not only do you get the bonus from your ability, you also get the bonus from his ability. And it works vice versa, because it's an AoE, as long as you're within range of each other. So that seems like an awesome interaction. I have yet to have anybody actually party up and kind of test this stuff out but it'll be awesome to see, and I think it works. I'm pretty sure it works, and that'll be really great. Now the other thing, the last thing, is positive ground effect modifier. So that means if your units are in the forest, that 125% or 130% total melee defense, so like a 30% increase to melee defense and 30% increase to melee attack, that is increased by 20%. So I guess you might get like another 5 or how much would be 30%, 20% of whatever. I think it'd be like 6, something like that, 6% increase. It'd be all right, I guess. I don't know. That's why I say it's kind of an underwhelming ability. That feels like you have to rely on other people to kind of buff you as well. That's why I say with Julius Caesar, I think she'd be really good. But I think, yeah, I don't know. All right, so Arminius, he is really interesting, and I say that because of his ultimate ability. His ultimate ability is infiltration, but we'll get to that later. So Arminius is, known for being the backstabber of Rome. He has a few abilities that reflect that. So Momentum is his first ability. So Momentum is not a toggle ability, but it's sort of like Vengeance, where you, if you're doing a specific thing, it'll continuously be active. Now this specific thing is moving constantly. So Momentum gives you an increase to your movement speed and turn speed while you are continuously moving. But, let's see, where is it? What is this? That's weird. They have infiltration in a weird spot. You see that? They have momentum in the middle and then frenzy down the bottom, as opposed to everywhere else where it's 1, 2, and 3. Weird UI decision. I think at some point you can minus 5% but negative brown. Okay. I guess that just lets you run through the forest a little bit more. There was an ability that gave you more charge impact, but I guess they took that off. So now his second ability is Frenzy. Frenzy is a huge attack steroid. So melee attack goes up considerable amount, plus 50%. That's as much as Germanicus's Vengeance on a tier 2 ability. Or, well, I guess 3, but you're on a second ability. Really good. It only affects one unit, so you'd have to toggle it all on all units. But it increases your damage and increases your melee attack, which is your chance to hit. But it also decreases your melee defense by like 85%. That's a huge drop. So basically the understanding is, hopefully, you can do enough damage in order to rout the enemy or kill more of them than they can kill you. So that's the hope. Really good. And I guess you get increased melee defense as well. So that's 2. So that'd be 10, 20. Wow, you get like 30% increased melee defense. Holy crap. Oh, wait, never mind. Not increase. It just reduces the penalty. I was like, holy shit, that's crazy. And then now this is why I really like Arminius, but I haven't played him. I played him during the Steam beta. I haven't really played him lately because I played a hell of a lot of him. It was the same thing with Germanicus, but this closed alpha, I've been playing him a bit more. So then you have Infiltration. So exactly as it says in the tooltip, disguise yourself as the enemy. This ability will always be active, and when you're looking, when you're going around on the map, you will have friendly icons over you. So it would look like you were friendly to the enemy, to the enemy team. And it's really useful to get around the back. During really chaotic fights and stuff like that, you flick around the side and you say, okay, these guys are already fighting. Hopefully, what you're going to do is kind of skirt around the side and just kind of be unseen. You don't want to run straight on through from the enemy side because it's going to be really obvious that you're an enemy if you're coming from the enemy side and you just popped out of nowhere. Because the thing is, when you pop Infiltration, they don't have your vision. So when you come out of like the forest or something, you're just going to appear out of nowhere, which is you know, a sign of you being an enemy. Hopefully, using this, people won't see that. But yeah, so one way to really check whether or not an enemy or, you know, a barbarian is on your team is, one, to press tab to see if he's on your team, or two, if you think he's, if he's like a little bit too close for you to just kind of screw, like, you know, go up and down on either side to see, oh, is he on my team? You're searching through 20 players, you know, through that time we might have already charged somebody or charged you. So what you can do is actually click one of your units, you know, have one of your units selected, and scroll your mouse cursor over it, just in case it's like, I wonder if these barbarians are friendly. You scroll your cursor over the enemy, it'll show a little attack icon, and that'll give away that they're enemies. So the only way to disable that look for him is to make him, or to cause him, or to make him take damage. So you can do stuff in melee or at range. If someone hits you and you take damage by an enemy, then your infiltration cover is blown and you'll look like an enemy to them. One thing that's really cool is using war dogs with infiltration. And when you use the war dogs with infiltration, what happens is that the war dogs become a separate entity. So the war dogs will rush in and attack an enemy, but they'll look friendly. But once you start attacking them in return, they'll turn into an enemy. But what happens is the war dogs will not trigger your infiltration on you. So this is what I'm saying. War dogs and their handlers are two different entities when you set them to go fight an enemy. And we'll talk about the war dogs a little bit more when I get to the army, so it might be a little bit confusing right now to understand. But basically, if you have war dogs, they're handlers. And you can tell the war dogs to go here, go there, yada yada. It's nice for the speed bonus? Yeah, it's nice. Oh, so that's where they got the charge bonus, yeah. So they used to have charge bonus on momentum, but they gave it to infiltration. That's kind of silly. They should put it back on momentum. Whatever. Infiltration is a nice ability. It's pretty fun. It's not extremely awesome, but it's pretty fun. I'll go over to Vercingetorix. Vercingetorix is the main man. He is the dude. He is the barbarian, like, fucking master. Alright? And we'll give you a couple of reasons why. Also, thank you for the support. I appreciate that. Thank you for the follow. He is the barbarian fucking god. Alright? He is the best. He's the best. Reason why is that he is just an amazing melee combatant. And there are a couple of reasons why for him to be that way, and they're all his abilities. Iron Discipline is his first ability. That makes your units, so say if your units are about to break, they have a little bit of morale left, you activate Iron Discipline, their morale won't increase or decrease. They'll just stay in place. And at base is a 60-second cooldown, and the duration is 10 seconds. 60 seconds is not a long time while you're fighting. This comes up fairly frequently. And then you get active time. Wow, you get a lot of active time for that. And you get melee defense as well. It's a pretty good ability. Positive ground effect modifiers. There's a lot of good stuff here. So that's his first ability. Really strong if you're in melee combat and there are more targets than there are. It's kind of like think of how I explained Scipio Africanus's Oath of Perseverance ability earlier on, but this just makes you like unable to rout at all for a duration, while as Scipio's Oath of Perseverance is continuous as long as he's in melee or they rout or die. Now his second ability is Scorched Earth. Now Scorched Earth is just, it's such a good ability, and mainly against people who want to sit still, and yeah, it's crazy. It does so much damage. And one of these, it says, explosion damage is 5 damage. I'm pretty sure that Scorched Earth stacks. So if you throw this on, so if you have all your units throw Scorched Earth onto the same target, the damage will stack up to 15 as opposed to just 5 per second. I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100% sure, but there's been a lot of times where I've been melted by Scorched Earth. It's a negative missile block that does all the damage. Well, okay. Well, maybe that's what it is. Like I said, I could be wrong. It does. I guess it sets up for a lot of damage. We'll leave it at that. But it's good for taking out targets like Leonidas, who are sitting there fighting the shade. You throw that onto them. Not only are they taking damage, but once you start pelting them with either your javelins or the bowmen or friendlies attack them with their range units, they will take more damage. Really good ability. He's great. And then his last ability is Defiance. Defiance I haven't actually ever used, but I've seen people use it. Sometimes I don't even really notice it. But I'm sure it's useful. It's a bad description of it, really. I'm sorry. But basically, Defiance keeps your units from dying until the duration is done. So for 20 seconds, your units will not die. They'll take damage, so they'll be at like, you know, they'll go to like 1 health per model. So they'll go down to the very last point of health, and they'll keep fighting and fighting and fighting until, well, let me see. Inspire Defiance that holds your men from the grave until the winter screen. Yeah. I'm worried that I'm saying this wrong, because it doesn't really say. It says in the tooltip that it keeps them from dying, but I'm kind of worried that maybe they changed it. I don't know. Anyways, what my understanding is, your units won't die. They'll go down to the very last bit of health until the duration is done, and then your units will die. Pretty good for fighting overwhelming odds. So let's go on to the army line for the Barbarians. Barbarians are really good light infantry. They're good at flanking. In the forest, they're very formidable. They have relatively high melee defense. Where is it? So, I mean, I wouldn't. It's alright melee defense, but once you get to the let's see. Thank you for following. I appreciate that. And thank you Slashny. Thank you for the support. I appreciate that. I heard people say they don't even care if barbs pop Defiance. That's what I'm saying. Like I've seen a lot of people use Defiance, but like that's why I said in the beginning, I'm like, I'm not even sure. Like sometimes I don't even realize that it's being used. So, you know, I'm not sure if they need to change anything with Defiance or not. Honestly, like I said, I don't notice it pop sometimes, but it sounds like an awesome ability, right? I just don't really ever notice it. Anyways, Barbarians tend to have fairly high melee defense. They're not insanely good at sustained combat, but they're good at really just fighting the forest and flanking. And there are a couple of other things that they're really good at, but they have decent attack numbers. So their melee attack tends to be really high. Yeah, 82 melee attack. We'll go over to like the Romans, who are, like I said, they're like the gods of. So you have 82, and this is them upgraded though. So 84, and then we have, what was it? Barbarians, the Cherusci Warband at tier 4 have 82. It's a little bit different. So the melee damage 182. I'm just checking numbers here because sometimes they change these. So 182. Okay, so high attack numbers, high melee damage for most of their units, and then you have the Foxmen, who are awesome. I'm pretty sure these guys are like the guys who have the most utility. And what I'm saying is that most of their units are light infantry, which means that they can be in the forest and they'll get a really big buff from it. But also, they have very unique abilities for their units. So we'll go ahead and go to the second and strays because they're on the top, and I'll go from the top down. The second and strays are your war dog unit. I'll go ahead and go over to Boudica just so I can show you the actual models. So these are the second strays. I got it low quality, but they look better in the higher qualities. I have low quality because the CPU has been acting up during the game. And these are the Wild Wolves. The second strays are tier 4. I'll go ahead and just select those. They have pretty good stats. Their health is fairly high. Overall, they're kind of squishy though. They don't have a lot of armor. Am I correct? Yeah, they have pretty average armor. Their morale is kind of meh. But the dogs are what make them good. So we'll go back to the tree because I like looking at that more. So that's what they look like. You go over here and you can see, we'll talk about the war dogs, like the actual dogs. That's the most important part of them. They're kind of crappy without them. So your first ability for them is the Unleash ability. So the Intercept Range means that the maximum range that you can use it is 200 meters out. So what this is, so we'll read the description. It probably gives a little bit of better description, hopefully without me rambling on too much. So the handlers send their war dogs to a specific location. While away from their handlers, the dogs will attack any enemy who comes close. Deactivate this ability to call them back. So you sick them out, and they'll attack any enemies along the way and in the area. Can be a bit annoying, but I guess we could talk about that another time. But that's the main ability that you'll be using. You're going to be calling them in and out, and they'll be charging with you, or doing other things like that. One of the main things that the war dogs are good at, war dogs have the ability to completely negate any damage that a unit in phalanx formation is dealing. Except for like their regular melee attacks. They will not take phalanx damage. And so phalanx damage is what keep your units from getting into melee range of their units. And so they will run in and they will tear apart anybody who is in phalanx formation. Best bet for anyone who's in phalanx formation with these guys, probably just get out of phalanx formation and fight them normally. No, that's what I'm saying. No, so here, this is the thing. The phalanx will not deal damage. The units, so when you're in phalanx formation, you put the phalanx formation down, alright? That has its own damage. It has, we'll go over here and show you real quick. Okay? The phalanx has its own damage numbers. Right, so you have increase of 20% melee damage, and that is normal. But once you get within melee range, those units still attack normally. That's what I'm saying. Also, hey Simon. Or did you follow? I don't know. Yeah, so you'll take damage, but it's not from the pikes. It'll be because of the unit's normal melee attacks. So that's one thing about the phalanx. Phalanx, not only will they attack with the phalanx formation, they'll also attack in melee. So they deal like 2 attacks basically. That's why I hate the phalanx formation, but whatever, we'll leave that be. So they're really good at taking out phalanx. They're also really good at being sort of a counter charge or a way to absorb damage. So what I'm saying is a couple of tactics, what you can do with them. Say if you have cavalry charging in on you. Your guys are really bad at charge deflection. If cavalry gets into your actual dog handlers, they'll get obliterated like archers, like ranged units. But what you can do is sick the dogs out. So you tell them to go out towards the cavalry, and they'll absorb all the damage. For some reason, the war dogs take significantly less damage from charges than any other units. I think it's just because their charge is just amazing. Most of the damage that the war dogs deal is from their initial charge. During sustained combat, the war dogs are really bad unless they're fighting cavalry, or they're fighting they're fighting archers. The reason why I say cavalry is because the cavalry attack very slowly and they have less numbers. So basically the dogs just outnumber the cavalry and attack them more often. That's why they would beat them out. Dogs are very bad against heavily armored units and anybody who has a brain. Dogs are not OP. They do need to have a couple of changes with their charge impact, but other than that, they're not overpowered. They're really good against phalanx formations and cavalry and running down units who are routing as well. So now we'll go over to the Foxmen. The Foxmen have another unique ability. So Foxmen have their own frenzied charge, right? Do all these units have it? Okay. Yeah, so they have a special charge that has increased speed and increased damage overall. But that's not really what you're interested in. Foxmen completely ignore any melee shield statistics. So, like I said earlier, Romans get most of their defensive properties from their shield. Their shield is like their lifeblood. You get a couple of these Foxmen in, and you get in. Foxmen won't be able to beat most Roman infantry on the one-on-one fight, but they're basically no Dachi from Total War Shogun 2. They are the guys. They're shock infantry. You run them in, they deal a lot of damage, and hopefully you can turn the tide. You really want to flank with these, or fight with people who are already engaged, or maybe bring like 2 warriors and 1 Foxman, or one warrior and 2 Foxmen to sort of have a front line, but then also the DPS from the Foxmen. Really good against the Roman infantry. And their numbers are pretty high for the armor piercing damage. 30 armor piercing damage is pretty good. Really high raw melee damage as well, and really high flank, morale flank. Well, I guess that's pretty normal for the barbarians, I guess. Yeah. Let's see, what else do they have? Well, they have the Barbarian Calvary. Barbarian Calvary are they're very light. So they're Barbarian light cavalry, basically. I think they have a couple of medium, though I could be wrong. Yeah. Most of these guys are better suited for outmaneuvering and out engaging either other cavalry or just enemy units in general. They're really good at. They move really quickly, basically. They move really quickly. They have a pretty good charge. They're not amazing, but they're not bad. One thing that's really good for them is I think they get it pretty early on too. Do they get ability with this? No. So maybe it's tier 5. Do they get tier 5? Okay. So tier 5 is what they get. Wow. Really? I thought they must have changed that in a recent update, because you could get Mount Kick much earlier. So Mount Kick is just one of the best abilities for cavalry. It allows them to stay into combat for a much longer time. Deals damage, but mainly just knocks them down. So if anybody's within melee range of you, it'll knock down the models around them, and that'll just prevent them from attacking. It's really good for charging in, and if you want to get out, you Mount Kick, you knock them down again, knock down any of the guys who are still holding your units in place, and then you get out of town. They're really good at running down medium and light infantry, not so good at fighting heavy infantry, and they do pretty well in some situations fighting other cavalry. Roman cavalry will, for the most part, beat them because the Roman cavalry have heavier armor, a little bit better damage, and just have more staying power. And then you have their archers. So archers are a fairly recent addition to the barbarian line, and I say recent, not really. They've been around for quite a number of months, but during the Steam beta they didn't have it. So anybody who was playing the Steam beta, haven't played any of the closed alphas, all of your cries of where are my Britain longbowmen and all that stuff, where are my Britain range units, these are here. So you can quit whining about it, I guess. They're pretty good. They don't have nearly as much range. I don't think their accuracy is particularly good in comparison to Greek units, but I think they're pretty fast, right? Let's see. I think they have a little bit more speed than most units. Most infantry will say they have 4 speed, but they have like 4.8 or something like that. Whatever. They have really good visibility range. They're highly mobile. You know, their range units, so they're terrible in melee. They're pretty terrible. The nice thing though is they do have a little bit of a missile block chance. So when you get up into the higher tier guys, the proven archers, they get an alright amount of missile block. So it's about on par with some of the Roman javelin units. They're pretty good. They're not amazing. They just add a ranged ability to the more or less much more melee focused faction that the Barbarians are. Alright, so that's the overall synopsis of the Barbarian units. We're going to go ahead and go on to the Greek units. Leonidas is pretty good. He's a bread and butter faction for Greece. The second guy would be Alexander. Kennedy is... She can be really good, but the problem is that well, a lot of people when they're using Kennedy, they just go all triple archers, and it's really not good. Triple archers just, it's only good against people who don't know what they're doing. And for the most part, when people are playing these closed alphas, a lot of new people are coming in, and so they get hammered by these triple archer comps. They're really not that good. One cavalry unit can wipe out all of them. But yeah, we'll go back to Leonidas. Leonidas' first ability, he's kind of like the Germanicus of Greece, and Vercingetorix would probably be another. He's a frontliner. He's a guy that gets business done. Leonidas is much more centered around staying still, though. And most of the Greek infantry units are that way. Except for when you use Miltiades, he has specific abilities that make him more mobile in the infantry line. So his first ability is Shield Bash. I hate this ability so much. It's so good. But I'm pretty sure... So, let's see. So plus 6% melee damage. So it'd be plus 40% melee damage right out the box. And so this ability is so good mainly because it does a 100% chance to hit. So, and another reason why it's so good is it also knocks down the opponent. So, like I said, most units have, well, no, all units have a melee attack modifier and a melee defense modifier, or stat, and that allows you to either hit targets more frequently or get, or dodge enemy attacks more frequently. But this ability completely negates that melee attack factor. It has a 100% chance to do 46%, 146% total damage to a target. If you get a really good shield bash off, which is really not that hard, you can wipe out half a unit's health with one shield bash. It is so good. It is so strong. And then couple that with the Phalanx ability. This ability is so strong. But most of the time, that's kind of where most of his damage comes from. The Phalanx as well, but during combat where he gets flanked, he just kind of he crumbles pretty quickly, and that's Greece overall. But he just does everything that Greece is good at. He makes it much better. He's really standard. He's about as standard as you can get. And then his second ability is Hold the Line. Well, no. Why do they do this? First ability, fifth ability, third tier. It's because of the lines that they have. I understand what they're trying to do with this, but yeah. His second ability is Fight in the Shade, and that is basically the same thing as Germanicus's Testudo. It's significantly less useful. Not less useful. It's significantly less. Yeah. So you start off with 40, and Leonidas only gives you 33. Why 33? That's an awkward number. We just start off with 33. There must be a reason for it. It's like, oh, well, 32 is too little and 35 is overpowered. So we got, 34 is overpowered. We got to stay at 33. Unless this is a reference to something. But yeah, so you just cover yourself up. They'll put their shields up and they'll block the missiles. That's the ability. And then you have Hold the Line. Hold the Line is a really good ability. A unique mechanic to Greek units, and I think one of the units for the Barbarians they have the Spear Brothers. Where are they? Are they Spear Brothers? No. They don't have Spear Brothers? Am I wrong? Maybe I am wrong. Spear Brothers. Maybe it's maybe the Greece. Maybe Greek is just the ones who have the Spear Brothers. Spear Brothers. Where are Spear Brothers at? I don't see where these guys are, and I'm almost 100% sure that they are a unit that is Barbarian. I can't find out where they are. Well, there is a unit here that's called Spear Brothers, and I think it's Barbarian, and they allow you to have, unless maybe, no. Okay, what happened to the music? Oh, there's like 20 minutes of awkward silence for this fucking video. Here we go. Let's go back to the abilities. Yeah, so a unique mechanic with the Greek infantry is the ability to do Hoplite Phalanx. So some of the things with Hoplite Phalanx, you turn it on, you get into formation. Any infantry that's trying to attack yours is going to have a really hard time getting towards your units because they're going to keep him at bay. They're going to keep him at a little bit of a range, and they're going to do 20% increased damage, and it's so good. You move really slowly though, and you can't really turn really quickly. So the biggest thing is when you see a guy like this, when you see a hoplite player, or pikeman, or just phalanx formation up, the intended use or the intended counter to that is trying to run around the side and flank them, because once they get flanked they break pretty easily. But the mechanic with this is, as you can see here, phalanx fatigue regeneration rate while moving backwards plus 12. So there's a little fatigue bar that when you're using phalanx, the more and more enemies that you fight in that phalanx, the more and more fatigue that you will generate. If your if your fatigue generation goes up to 100%, then your hoplite phalanx will break, and I'm pretty sure your units will start riding, though I could be wrong. I think they've made it significantly harder to actually break your phalanx due to that, though, and it feels like they made the phalanx much stronger than kind of feels like it needs to be, but oh well. So his tier 5 ability, Hold the Line, basically when you're moving backwards, you reduce your fatigue by, so the base would be here. So base would be 12, you reduce it by 24% per each time you go back. So that's pretty good. You reduce a lot of fatigue, and you can hold your phalanx ability for much longer. And it also increases your morale. And the thing is, this is an AoE ability. So this will target all melee infantry within that range. So basically everybody around you would just have increased morale. Really nice. And a lot of times you'll have times where you'll be holding the line, you pop, you'll be in phalanx, you'll hold the line, and you're being flanked from behind, and your guys just won't break until like literally the last guy is left. So your guys are just going to be really tough to put down. Yeah, so that's Leonidas. Let's go ahead and go to Kinini. So Kinini is your ranged sort of harasser type. Her main ability is at tier 5, which is really, really awesome. But she really just wants to move around and move quickly, and sorry, coughing there. She wants to move quickly and sort of get off onto the flanks or into better positions. Say if someone's trying to run you down with infantry, you pop Rapid Advance, which is your first ability. Gives you increased turn speed, increased base speed, and increased acceleration. So you get really fast, really quickly, and it lasts for 10 seconds. This isn't a charge. This is only a movement speed increase. So this is really just for, like, say if you have an infantry unit and you wanted to flank around the side, like a melee infantry unit, you wanted to flank around the side and hit them by the back. That's what you do. You would pop rapid advance, move as quickly as you can off to the flank, and hopefully before anybody can get into that position, you can flank and maybe get them to rout. Just basically move fast. Yeah, got Hermes shoes there. That's basically all it is. Just move fast. Hunt is a pretty good ability, and this helps you keep targets that go out of your range. So the max range that you can do is 75 units, and that's how far you can target the ability on them. That's pretty close, honestly. I think it's a pretty close range that that you have to be in order to use this ability. But if you get within that range and they try to run away, say if it's like cavalry, there's a lot of times where I've used it where if you're sort of in the back line as the archer, you have an archer in the back line, what you do is you use this on, like, say if there's like a cavalry that just jump straight into the front line, you can use the hunt thing and you'll pepper them, and once they're running away, you can keep hitting them while they're trying to get behind cover or something like that. Something that's also nice is that you can use this ability also while you're cavalry. You can't use this as melee infantry. Only melee or only missile infantry and cavalry can use this. There aren't any archer cavalry, so yeah, kind of sad about that. But yeah, so you have the ability to use it on cavalry. It'll let you, like, say if you're running down a target in the forest, it's really good for running targets down in the forest because you're not going to have that range or that visibility range. You're just running them down, and you can see whether or not they're turning around, and maybe that'll telegraph they got reinforcements or something like that. Really good. And her best ability, the reason why everybody goes her, is Barrage. So Barrage increases a reload time significantly. So by minus 67% on tier 1. So for 3 seconds you fire like a non-stop stream of fucking arrows. Just arrow after arrow after arrow. Once you fire all those arrows, after 3 seconds it goes back. But as you can see here, the base missile armor piercing damage is reduced significantly, though it's not really anything to worry about. You'll go to like tier 5 to base this off of. So if you see, the armor piercing missile damage is 10. 10's really not a whole lot, as you can see with like some of the other units, like the Romans. We'll go to tier 5 with Arrears. And we have armor piercing missile damage 88. But these are throwing javelins. Alright. And then compared to the barbarians have even less, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they have 8. So really, honestly, it doesn't matter too much. These archers, you probably don't even really notice the missile damage too much to be like, oh shit, I'm doing minus 50%, armor piercing damage. Maybe we should stop. That is completely made up by all the damage that you're doing while doing the barrage. So this minus 50% armor piercing thing is just, might as well not even be there. That's her ability. That's why people go 3 archers. It's not the best thing to do. It doesn't help you. Well, it can help your teammates out a lot, but it leaves you very vulnerable. And say if it's sort of like a 2-1 or a 2v2 situation where the enemy has 2 infantry groups, or 1 infantry group and the second guy has cavalry, you guys are going to get fucked. You're not going to be able to help him out at all. So usually what I say is at least bring 1 melee infantry in. And then let's go and see Miltiades. Miltiades needs a lot of love. That's how I'll start him off with. He's kind of in a rough position. He's not terrible, but he needs a lot of love. So Miltiades is the antithesis of everything that is Greek. He does everything that is Greek and flips it on its back and just, yeah. you're not even playing Greece anymore. You're just kind of playing a shittier version of Rome. So his infantry charge is 4 seconds, 4-second long infantry charge. Sort of it's a nice duration. You get 30% charge bonus. You get 30% acceleration and 15% speed. You go pretty fast with this infantry charge, and when you upgrade it, you go really, really fast with it. It's a very short burst of speed, really, and you can cover quite a lot of distance with it. Not particularly amazing, not particularly bad, just kind of average. So the same thing with Boudica's Fury Charge. And now this is an ability that has been introduced recently called Break Ranks. So the cooldown is 15 seconds. It's another one of those toggle abilities. So you would have to wait 15 seconds in order to toggle it back, just like Boudica's ambush ability. I feel like the people who worked on Miltiades' rework also worked on Boudica. Now, this one is really rough. It kind of just like I said, it puts everything that Greece is good at, makes it bad, and then turns you into like a mediocre infantry guy. It just doesn't work. So Break Ranks, like I said, is toggle ability. You increase your speed by 16%. It's nice to run down like, dying targets. And you increase your melee attack by 25%. So basically, if a guy is routing, that's when you use it. But it's pretty bad because you lose your charge deflect, you lose your melee defense. I can't really tell you it's a good ability, but it's his ability, and I guess you have to make it work if you really enjoy him. Now, one thing is Fear. Fear is probably his best ability. It's probably the only ability why you would ever use him. He does everything that Greece does and makes it terrible, but Fear makes up for it. Only sort of. Fear has a 60-second cooldown. I'm pretty sure this is the lowest cooldown of any ultimate ability in the entire game. Miltiades will target an enemy. He'll only target one enemy. It's not an AoE. It's a single target ability. So if you're using melee infantry or melee cavalry, as it says in the tooltip, you'll be able to use this ability, and it'll reduce the enemy's speed, their melee defense, and their morale. It's really good for, like, say if you are fighting a target and they're taking, like, we're taking kind of like equal casualties. You use Fear on them, they'll start taking more casualties and then more morale shock because they've lost 35 base morale. Really good for just routing units. It's nice also, say if you wanted to use like Break Ranks in order to flank around the side. It's such a good idea, but it doesn't work in game, mainly because of the charge deflect thing. If the charge deflect thing wasn't such a big thing, like if it wasn't minus 25%, it'd be alright. But that minus 25% charge deflect just absolutely wrecks this ability's usefulness, for the most part. Because say if you see, oh, I've got Miltiades charging out behind me, and, I'm Germanicus already fighting somebody. I'm going to turn my guy around and full-on charge right into Miltiades' charge. Even if he has, like, his kit fully charged out, or, fully kitted out, his ability fully upgraded, and he's got this thing going, the charge deflect is so bad that his units are just going to lose the engagement. That's why it's not so good. But anyways, so the theory is you use Break Ranks in order to get around the side. You charge in, you use Fear in order to break those units. It works sometimes, but if the enemy is smart and they try to fight against you, you're going to have a really rough time. Miltiades is pretty good, though, for turning close engagements into a winning engagement. He's not so good at turning losing engagements into winning engagements, or even close engagements. That's not his stuff. Who does do that really well is Alexander the Great. The reason why is just because, one, the abilities that they have, or that he has, is just so good. Like cavalry, the Greek cavalry is so good for charging. It's amazing. Like, you wipe out entire infantry units with some of these charges that you can do. His first ability is Hammer. If you know anything about I almost said Scipio. If you know anything about Alexander the Great, his tried and true sort of like battle invention was the anvil and hammer. So they're reflecting this in his abilities. So a little bit about the anvil hammer is you get your units to lock down the enemy in melee, and then you use. So that's the anvil, and the hammer is when you get a unit to flank around and charge right into the back. Sounds pretty basic, but it is extremely effective. Now, his first ability is Hammer. So Hammer is his charge ability. You get plus 20% charge bonus, plus 20% acceleration, plus 10% speed. It doesn't sound that great, but like this it's great. So coupled with his wedge ability, even without wedge, it's really good as well. Just because of the raw stats that Greek cavalry have as far as charge bonus goes. And then his second ability is Anvil. So Anvil is an ability where you sort of like it's very similar to Miltiades' ability, his ultimate ability, where it's a single target. So you target this guy, you get your melee infantry to target an enemy infantry or enemy target. It could be cavalry, any enemy target, and it will force them to attack you. They will turn around and attack you, and they will not be able to move. You can't tell them to do any abilities or anything like that. They are stuck there. The only thing you can do is just kind of take it. Your units are lost to you if you are targeted by an anvil. Now, this is really good coupled with, you know, charges. You really just see most of the time people who are using who are using just 3 cavalry, because the raw stats of cavalry are just so good. But say if you had a second player, say if you had, like, you know, a squad, and you had another player with you, so you're 2 guys, you have one guy going Greek infantry as Alexander, and then you have the other guy going Greek cavalry as Alexander. You have one guy just anvil, you know, the front line down. You have your friend hopefully go around the side, and then charge them in the back, and they'll just get obliterated. So this reduces the charge, deflect, and melee defense. And then his ultimate ability is another toggle ability. It's called Wedge. It takes a 3-second time in order to activate. It's sort of the same thing with Boudica's ability. So that means over the course of 3 seconds is when his ability will activate. After that, it'll be activated, not before. This increases your cavalry's charge impact by 10%, base stats, and it increases the charge bonus by 15%. So basically, it just makes your cavalry hit really hard when it charges, but it reduces your melee defense by 60%, which is a pretty heavy hit to melee defense. Usually, you only want to use wedge if you know you're going to obliterate the target. You don't want to use wedge if it's going to be sort of like an even sort of trade, or like you're going in and you're trying to help a teammate and you're charging in there. You're going to take more casualties than is worth to use wedge. So sometimes it's just better to use the base formation. Also with wedge has a few formation collision problems. Sometimes going around sides of like if you're turning on a road, it'll take the formation a lot longer to turn. Just a couple of weird, annoying things with them. Let's go over to their army, though. They have really well-balanced army, more so centered on defensive, on the defensive side. As you can see, everybody is in Hoplite, or no, everybody's in Phalanx formation. Even the horses are. They have their spears out. But yeah, so as we covered before, most have the ability to perform the Phalanx. The only time it changes is when it becomes the Hoplite, or the Pike Phalanx, and the Levy Pikemen also get raised shields ability. Do these guys? Okay, so they're not allowed to get that either. Okay. Oh, so they trade out the ability... So, okay, yeah. I see. So this is what happens. So it's basically a second attack. So you use Shield Bash and you use Phalanx Thrust, and it'll fuck up people. As Leonidas, you need Shield Bash. Also, let's... I hate this. There we go. It'll go away eventually. Okay. Yeah, so they're more so focused on... Their infantry corps is defensive. You can play them aggressive, but you're always going to be using the phalanx formation. Almost always. The only time you probably won't is if you're being attacked by... If you're being set on fire, you want to get out of there as quickly as possible. Or if you're being attacked by dogs, you'll want to attack out of phalanx formation. But yeah, so let's see. Let me see what else is on here. Pike Phalanx. Okay, so Pike Phalanx is a little bit different. It has 1% melee attack and plus 30% melee damage. But the Hoplite Phalanx is a little bit less, does 10% less damage. But... Yeah, is it work? Okay, I gotta... but you are also allowed to move back. Are you not allowed to move back with a Lily Pikeman? Maybe you aren't. Wow, okay. So pikemen, I guess pike phalanx don't actually get fatigue. No wonder. There's been a couple of times where I went up and tried to fight pikemen, and they don't have fatigue. I don't like that, but I guess there's a reason. So then we have the cavalry. Like I said, the charge bonus. You see charge impact 125. This is tier 3. 125 charge impact, 121 charge bonus. I'm pretty sure it's better than tier 4 or tier 5 cavalry. Okay, never mind. No. So 120 charge impact with the charge bonus is much better. I guess we'll go for tier 5 though. So tier 5 on tier 5. So 173. Holy shit. That's insane. And then you get like some of these that get like plus 20% charge bonus. Like, not 20%, but plus 20 charge bonus. These guys just like, I'm telling you, they almost one-shot units, like just how strong they are. So Greek cavalry is just like the master of shock cavalry. You go in and you just tear people apart. And then their archers are really, really good. They don't do a whole lot of armor-piercing damage, but they shoot fairly accurately, and their raw damage is high enough so that you don't really even worry about armor-piercing damage. Let's see. Yeah, the range is 95, and I'm pretty sure the range for these guys is lower. Yeah, so they have slightly less range. Not a whole lot to be really looked at, but yeah, they do have less range. If you go up to the Cimmerian heavy archers, these guys are fucking awesome. They're basically just become medium infantry at this point. They have missile block, and you can increase that missile block by quite a lot. That's 20, or 44 missile block is quite a lot for a range unit. But this is at tier 9 though, so yeah. That's what you're basically working for. The Cretan archers or whatever, but the Cimmerian heavy archers are amazing. Now something else that I would suggest doing if you're playing like the Coles Alpha right now, you know how many people are doing this like whole archery thing. Also, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. You know how many people you've seen with Kinene, and you've got like 3 archers on there, and you say, "Fuck, I hate this guy running archers all the time." This is what you do. All right, you become one of them. If you're too frustrated to play Germanicus and accept that you're going to get hit and you're going to have to be in Testudo for like half of the match, or some other things where you're just going to have to sit there and take it. If you don't like sitting there and taking it, and you think that you're not really good at playing cavalry, you kind of just want to do the archer role, stick with the archers, then go with the slingers. I'll tell you why. Alright, so comparing the damage between the slingers and the archers. We'll start with the archers first. 164 missile damage, 10 armor piercing damage, and they have 95 range. And 8 missile dispersion, which is really good. Now, we're going to go over to the Siloi. So, the Siloi have significantly less armor piercing damage, much more missile damage, and like almost 40% increase to range. Alright? That's a huge range bonus. From 95 to 130, that is huge. And this is why I'm telling you to go slingers. Alright? Fuck the archers, go slingers. Because this is what you're going to do. You're going to go these siloi, alright? And you're going to be like, fuck. You know, after you're so tired of all these guys just killing you all the time, you go the siloi, you get the slingers, you just start throwing those fucking rocks at those fucking pansy-ass foreheads of those fucking archers, and you obliterate them. And you'll never get touched by archers. You'll get touched by, yeah, if you... I'm pretty sure they don't even have melee. Yeah, they don't even have melee stats, so they can absolutely destroy a melee. If there's cavalry around. If you're regular, like if you're regular infantry, you're never catching up to these slingers. But yeah, these guys are the anti-archer range unit. You will destroy any archers around. You have a little bit of missile block. 21 is whatever. You kind of get a good bit more. But these things are like awesome. You want to get these to fuck up those other archers because there's going to be so many people, and your first thought is like, I should go cavalry in order to kill these other archers. No, just become an archer and then become an anti-archer archer. But yeah, so this is the full overview here of Total War Arena's units. I haven't gone through the specific stats. I've given you a fairly big overall look at most of these units. Their abilities, unit abilities as well as commander abilities, and I hope that I have been somewhat informative. And even if I don't get everything right, hopefully I've taught you something. You know, even if you know most of this, hopefully something has gotten through and you've enjoyed at least a little bit of this. But I think it's about time we got into the match, or into a match.